Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Steven Universe Retrospectives, and today we're going to be discussing episodes 7 and 8 of Steven Universe, Bubble Buddies and Serious Steven. Let's talk about Bubble Buddies first. In this episode, we're actually introduced to a potential love interest for Steven, a young girl by the name of Connie. Connie is not a denizen of Beach City. Rather, she is a frequent, I'm going to say tourist to the city, as her dad is an on-call security guard, and because of his job, he tends to get stationed at different places at different times. As a result, sometimes Connie stops by Beach City because sometimes her dad is stationed here. And as a result, she kind of goes around a lot. We do learn in later episodes that she doesn't, move around a lot. She does have, a central home. She and her parents do have their own house that they regularly live in. It's just that because of how her dad's job, she tends to go around a lot, and unfortunately, she also doesn't have a lot of friends. This is in turn because she does move around a lot, and because she's kind of the typical bookworm stereotype. And as a result, she doesn't really tend to socialize with people. However, Steven himself actually noticed her the last time she was in Beach City, as the year prior, she was visiting Beach City during a Beach City parade or something, and Steven was on one of the floats, the float that his dad created for the car wash. And during the parade, she happened to drop her bracelet, one of those bendy glow-in-the-dark bracelets that you have, and Steven saw her drop it, and he's actually saved the bracelet until he could see her again. In fact, which actually is a nice little detail. He kept it in his freezer, and you did actually see it in the first episode of the series when Steven went through the cookie cats. So Steven sees her again in this episode, just kind of sitting by the beach and just minding her business reading. As such, Steven wants to go and deliver the bracelet to her, but as you do, he has no idea how to talk to her, and he's just a nervous wreck. And the gems notice that he's trying to talk to her, and what I love is that they immediately start acting like nosy parents who want to know exactly what their kid is up to, and they're oh, who's that girl? Do you like her? We need to set up a play date. But Steven tries keeping them saying, no, don't watch, don't do anything. I want to do this myself. Don't mess up my funky flow. And so Garnet, being the leader of the trio, tells Pearl and Amethyst to kind of back off so Steven can have so Steven can actually talk to her. As such, she tries to go and talk to Connie again to give her the bracelet, but unfortunately, that's where problems arise. You see, earthquakes have been hitting Beach City, and these earthquakes are they're a bit too frequent, as we learn, and they're causing problems all around the city, all around the coast. And one of those problems is falling boulders, as when Connie's just kind of resting by the beach because the temple and Steven's house are located on the side of a cliff. As a result of one of the earthquakes, a boulder comes down and almost crushes Connie, and so Steven rushes to try and push her out of the way, and this in turn reveals a new gem power for Steven. In this case, he ends up creating a large pink bubble that encompasses himself and Connie, and manages to stop them from being crushed by the boulder, as the boulder just immediately breaks upon hitting the surface of the bubble. Unfortunately, though, Steven has no idea how to turn it off, and as such, he and Connie are kind of stuck in there for a while. While Steven's original plan is to go and see the gem, see if they can figure out how to undo this, unfortunately, because the door to his house is on an incline, the bubble is unfortunate. They can't get the bubble up there. As such, they opt to instead just go around Beach City and see if they can find someone who can help them. First, they go to the donut shack. I think that was called. I forget. I think I think I got that wrong. Don't quote me on that. I may have to say it later. But he ends up talking to the employees there, who we actually have met in earlier episodes. I just never mentioned them because they weren't important to the story at the time. The employees there are two teenagers by the name of Sadie and Lars. Sadie is kind of a shorter girl who is very much a nice person, but has a bit of an attitude. And then there's Lars, who is the very typical edgy teen stereotype who wants to be cool but really isn't, and for the majority of the show, he's just annoying, and in this episode, he's no exception, as he immediately begins teasing Steven about how he's on a date with Connie and how this is their bubble of love, while Sadie is the only one that's actually trying to get them out of the bubble. Unfortunately, though, none of Sadie's attempts work. As such, they end up going to the docks, and this is where here we meet another Beach City denizen, a young kid by the name of Onion, who I'm just gonna say right now is just weird. I know that's kind of sound weird, kind of off for me to say, but the kid's just weird. The episode makes no attempt to hide it, and later episodes just add on to the weirdness. And in this case, Steven wants to ask Onion if he can pop the bubble with a harpoon gun. And while it takes a bit of time for Steven and Connie to impart this message onto him, he does get it and does try shooting them, but the harpoon just bounces off the bubble and instead sinks a ship. As such, Steven decides to try bringing him and Connie to a place called Funland, this amusement park on a pier that it's just your typical amusement park. And Steven's plan is to get the bubble on the track of a roller coaster, and the impact from the roller coaster should pop the bubble. Connie, of course, thinks this is a stupid idea because in the instant they pop the bubble, what's going to happen to them when they're in the path of an active roller coaster? But Steven has clearly not thought that far ahead, and unfortunately, just before Connie can talk him out of this, another earthquake kicks in and knocks them onto the track, and when the guy running the roller coaster, the owner of the theme park by the name of Mr. Smiley, sees them on the track, he stops it, and the forward momentum ends up throwing them right out of the theme park and right into the ocean. So yeah, Steven and Connie are kind of SOL. However, in the ocean, as they're trying to wander, they end up finding the source of the earthquakes. A weird, giant worm monster whose main form of food are this weird glowing seaweed that every time it tries eating, it's a sloppy eater, as instead of just taking the glowing things and stuffing in its mouth, it just goes all in and just stuffs its face right into the midst of them all. The end result of this is that it burrows right into the earth and causes the earthquakes that have been hitting Beach City. And unfortunately, as a result of one of these earthquakes, the bubble that Steven and Connie are in are knocked into a crevasse. And as such, sorry about that, my dog just got up. They're knocked even further out of the way. Excuse me one second. Sorry about that, dealing with the dog. Anyway, yeah, Steven and Connie are knocked into a crevasse, so it kind of throws them even further off. And it's at this point that Connie kind of has a breakdown because, yeah, after being stuck in the bubble, she's afraid that they're gonna either suffocate or drown or starve. And as a result, and to make matters worse, she thinks she's gonna die without anybody even knowing that she existed because she has no friends. That is until Steven hands her bracelet and explains how he got it and what he was trying to do. And once Connie realizes that he was going to all this effort because he was trying to meet with her, it actually touches her. She actually does start to lighten up a little and smile and actually is chipper. And as a result, she and Steven, that chipper attitude kind of is infected over to Steven, and as they're both just smiling and laughing because Steven says, well, why can't I can be your friend? Connie, the bubble pops. And as a result of this, Steven and Connie are able to swim out of the crevice and up to the surface. So they begin just kind of laughing as they think they're out of trouble, only for the worm to come up and try and attack them. They manage to get to the shore, but the worm is still chasing after them. Specifically, it's chasing after Connie. And Steven is able to realize that it's after her bracelet because it glows like the seaweed. As such, Steven tells Connie to give him the bracelet, and using it, Steven is able to trick the worm as he ends up running under a pier and just runs around all the pillars. And because the worm is more focused on getting the bracelet than actually being maneuverable, it ends up getting tied up in all these supports for the pier and causes the whole thing to just collapse on top of it, causing the thing to go poof. As a result of this, after this, the gems end up showing up to see what the damage is, and as Steven tries to explain himself, Connie just intervenes and says, that was incredible, and is now just, excited and happy because she got to take part in that, and, well, again, she's now happy that she has a friend. As such, Pearl and Amethyst immediately try introducing themselves to Connie and talk about how Steven was looking forward to meeting her, but Garnet, ever the best mom, takes the two and says, hey, don't mess with this funky flow, and drags them and pulls them away. And so the episode ends with Steven just kind of nervously chuckling as he has to just kind of deal with the embarrassment from his three magic moms. So, hey, so yeah. Which brings us to the next episode, Serious Steven. And this is also another one that kind of relies on prior events for the episode to take place. As in this episode, Steven is now going on his first, as the Gems call it, serious mission. In this case, what's going on is that the Gems are going to, I'm going to say, a large strawberry field that used to be a battlefield. And the reason they're going there is that there is a temple that they have just recently acquired the key to. At the center of the temple is a gemstone. Their plan is to get to the center of this temple, find the gemstone, and get out. And as such, they're taking Steven along because, well, they're trying to, because again, he needs further training, as we further established, and the previous episode was even more indication of that, considering that he got himself and Connie stuck in a bubble. One more second. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Again, the dog. Anyway, now, while Steven is trying to take this mission seriously, the Gems are still a little hesitant for him to be there. Specifically, Pearl. Because, again, Steven is inexperienced, and he's still half-human. He can barely control his own powers, and she's afraid that he'll just get hurt. And she even uses another example of Steven causing a mishap with something that occurred 2 weeks prior to this episode at Funland. As you see, Steven and the Gems had wanted to go on this teacup ride, which is essentially just like these teacups that are being thrown through the air and spinning around. And while Steven did originally want to go on the ride, while he was on it, he got sick and wanted to get off halfway through. And unfortunately, when he got off, he forgot to yell for Mr. Smiley to turn the ride off, so he wound up falling off of his teacup, landing on Mr. Smiley, who accidentally jacked the ride up to the max, and it caused all the teacups from the ride to just go flying across the park, which in turn caused a few patrons to fly into the ocean, and other remaining teacups to fly into buildings. And result, Steven got a lifetime ban for the place, which is kind of off and on, because Steven does revisit Funland and even rides the rides at certain points, so I'm just assuming that the lifetime ban is only on when Mr. Smiley is mad at Steven. But bottom line, it was a mess up, and Steven is trying to put that behind him and move on and showcase that he actually is maturing and is taking the mission seriously. Unfortunately, though, things get off to a rocky start. As when the group does manage to find the temple and gets inside, Steven immediately screws things up as he touches this magical artifact, which causes all of them to essentially fall into a hole in the ceiling into this weird little room. And they have no idea how to navigate through the temple, so the group decides that they're going to split up to see if they can solve the mystery. Garnet will take Steven and continue further exploring the temple, while Amethyst and Pearl essentially have to explore on their own. As a result, Garnet and Steven go through a series of 3 rooms that each offer their own unique challenges. One is a room where you have to only step on the glowing panels, otherwise the whole floor collapses. There's another where spikes come down the ceiling and try to kill you, and the third room is just a combination of both, as there are floating platforms, lava, fire, spikes. It's just a mess, and that one's so bad that Steven actually blacks out, and Garnet takes care of it while just carrying him on her shoulder. Unfortunately, though, while they do get through all these rooms no problem, they end up right back in the set where they started, despite the fact that they went in a straight line. And apparently the same problem is affecting Pearl and Amethyst. To make matters worse, throughout this whole thing, Steven is just feeling nervous, queasy, upset. He just thinks that he can't take this. And while he keeps trying to assure the Gems that he can do this, that he's taking the job seriously, when Garnet says that they'll go through as many rooms as they can over and over again until they figure this out, he does end up having a freak out and breaks down, saying that he can't do this, that this really is like the teacups at Funland, until he realizes, wait, what if this is like the teacups in Funland? What if the rooms are just spinning us around? At which point Garnet, to test his theory, ends up punching into the floor, and when it collapses, they find that, yeah, there's like a mechanism beneath the floor that actually is causing the rooms in the building to continuously get shuffled around. And that's why Steven's been feeling queasy. And that's why no matter which door the Gems go into, they always wind up back at the center, because it just keeps spinning them around. As such, at the center of the mechanism is the gem that they're looking for, and so to get this, Garnet ends up throwing Steven right at the mechanism, and Steven is able to pull the gem out of its pedestal. And the end result of this, the mechanism is immediately shut down, and the temple just explodes. And thankfully, Steven and the gems are okay, and they consider this mission a win. They compliment Steven for being able to figure it out, and the episode ends with him getting swarmed by butterflies because he's covered in strawberry goo. One more second. I'm sorry. It won't be long. I'm sorry again. Again, sorry about that, dogs. But yeah, it's a summary. My thoughts on both episodes. First, let's talk about Bubble Buddies. Honestly, it's another cute episode. It's a good episode. Honestly, rewatching it now, I see a lot of the angles that the episode takes for expanding the universe, so to speak, of Steven Universe. As for starters, not only does the episode introduce a new character in the form of Connie, who will later become a much more important character as the series goes on, but it also does well in establishing further elements of not only Steven, but of Beach City. I already mentioned Sadie and Lars, who work at the Donut Shack and their kind of shtick with Steven, but we further see more parts of the city. We already saw the Fry restaurant, which we saw in the Frybo episode. But in this case, we're able to see that that Beach City has a thriving docks, which in turn introduces us to another inhabitant who becomes important later. We're introduced to Funland, and that's a place that Steven frequents, and it's a place for having fun. And we're introduced to more of Steven's powers, with him developing the bubble power, which, like with the shield, he doesn't really have full control over yet. But again, it's still further development of Steven as a character, and which again paired with the world. And again, there's also the stuff with Connie. This does well in not only showcasing more of Steven's personality and heart, as he's saved Connie's bracelet for at least a year before giving it back to her. And when he actually does have the chance to meet her proper to give it back, he's, nervous. And that's the way I think any kid would react when they're actually trying to interact with their crush for the first time. Because keep in mind that prior to this, Steven only saw Connie in a crowd. And the only reason he recognized her was because she dropped her bracelet, and Steven, being a nice guy, wanted to give it back to her, but now that he's actually seen her in person and he saved it, he really has no idea how to approach the topic. And it's kind of amusing seeing him try to think about how he can talk to Connie, how he tries to at first get her attention by riding his bike on the beach, which obviously doesn't work because the beach is covered in sand, so his bike just gets stuck / knocked over. Or when as he's trying to find way, as he and Connie keep exploring Beach City to try and find a way out of the bubble, just kind of seeing Steven interacting with everything and just being all nonchalant about it. What I kind of like is that it's a subtle thing, but they do imply that the reason Steven's keep being so calm is because he is trying to remain positive in the situation because, he's a member of the Crystal Gems, of course. Sorry. Food coming up. He's supposed to be able to deal with these situations. He should be calm and fine, and while it's clear that this is probably a dangerous situation, the gems have dealt with worse. He's supposed to be a gem, so he's trying his best to remain calm in a situation. It isn't until Connie breaks down that he starts acting a bit more emotional and finally does just talk to her, which I do kind of like, because it kind of implies that he was trying to keep everything together for her sake. And then when she finally breaks down, that's when he decides to actually have that little heart-to-heart with her, which is a nice indicator that he was probably just as nervous about Connie about the whole situation. But the instant she feels sad, that's when he decides there's never going to be a good moment for this. I'll just give this to her. It's a sweet little moment that does help further connect them and showcase more of Steven just being a kind person, and ultimately actually getting to know someone that he wants to try and form a relationship with, which I think is cute. On top of that, the episode still showcases that despite Steven being out of practice with his abilities and still needing to train in them, he's still creative and is still smart. Likewise, when he and Connie encounter the worm creature, Steven actually does catch on to how this thing operates as he sees it going after Connie. As, again, she has the glowing bracelet, and earlier they saw the thing going after glowing seaweed. And so he realizes, oh, this thing's after this. Connie, you get out of here. I'll take care of it. And while it does kind of look like he is just mindlessly running around and is afraid that this thing will kill him, which justifiable fear. He's a kid fighting a monster. At the same time, it is kind of interesting to see him using his environment to his advantage to take the creature out, as he continues luring it around the underside of the pier, and through that he manages to stop it by having it get so tied up that it pulls at the foundation of the pier and causes the thing to collapse on it. It's, again, very creative and does make up for his lack of powers / understanding of his powers, as it allows him to still find ways to work around that handicap and still be useful, which I like. And as a result of that, it's just, again, the episode does well in further establishing these things and bringing in new characters. Connie from the beginning has shown case to actually be a rather interesting character, and they do easily make her sympathetic. She's not just there to be a love interest, and she isn't just there, and she doesn't immediately find Steven charming, so to speak. Like, she's not, like, she doesn't, like, blow him off or anything, or doesn't act like, but at the same time, there's a clear distance between them. The only reason they end up socializing at all is because they're stuck in the bubble. As a result of this, while their interactions inside the bubble are not, like, they're not, it doesn't feel like there's tension there, but it also doesn't feel like they're getting any closer despite their confined space. It's just clear that Connie is only dealing with this until she thinks she can get out, and it's clear that she does not know how to talk to Steven just as much as Steven does not know how to talk to her. And as a result of this, there's a clear disconnect between them, especially considering that Steven is trying to remain calm with this while Connie is trying to think logically. And it isn't until she has her breakdown when they finally do connect, when they actually do speak to each other through emotionally, which is honestly when the bubble finally breaks, when Steven actually is actually socializing and being nice with her and actually trying to get to know her. And again, like I said, they do well in establishing her character. She's kind of book smart, kind of socially awkward, but ultimately is just kind of is sweet and kind and clear, and you do kind of see the bearings of a good person under her awkwardness. And by the end, when she does help Steven inadvertently take down the monster, she's honestly excited and is just happy to be there. And from there, it's as well in building up the relationship that will eventually come from this. So I like that. Good stuff. Again, so yeah, overall, I think Bubble Buddies was a good episode. Did well in further showcasing more Beach City, the locations, the characters. It did well in showcasing another one of Steven's powers that he'll be able to build on later, and it helped introduce the character of Connie, who will become a major character in later parts of the story. So I like that. Which also brings us to Serious Steven. Serious Steven is another one of those episodes that continues to showcase Steven's growth. In this case, showing him actually working in, as they called it, a serious mission. In this case, what I like is that they do offer a bit of apprehension for why Steven is there. At all, actually. Because the last time we saw Steven in a mission, he kind of dropped the ball. While they did show him being competent enough throughout the mission, at the final hurdle, he did not have the proverbial ball with the moon goddess statue. And as such, to bring him along for this mission, there's some clear apprehension, especially with the aforementioned teacup incident that happened 2 weeks prior to this episode. So there is a bit of added apprehension with having him be there at all, because he's inexperienced, has no idea what he's doing, despite the fact that he is clearly trying to get into a good mindset. And with all the added tension, and as a result, there is kind of those extra hurdles to cross. And throughout the episode, you do see Steven trying to cross them, but he is reacting the way that any normal person would be if thrown into these death-defying situations, especially how a kid would react to them. He is clearly trying to take it all in good humor, but he is not in his element throughout the entire episode. When he goes through the glowing rooms, he does well enough until he screws up, and then he and Garnet are almost killed. And then when they're in the spikes, he is still getting nervous and just kind of getting uneasy. And when he and Garnet get to the third room, like I said, he passes out. And by the end, when he learns that he and Garnet are going to have to keep going through those rooms over and over again, he again has a freak out because he realizes, oh my god, I can't keep doing this. I'm losing my mind here. It's an honest-to-God real reaction to dealing with these death-defying stunts. But with that being said, they also further showcase that Steven is smart, as when he has a freak out and says, yeah, I'm not ready for this is like the teacup ride at Funland, that's when it clicks. And he starts to realize, what if my sickness isn't because I'm nervous, but because of what's going on here? And from there, with that one little realization, the group is able to figure out the trick with the temple in the revolving rooms, and as a result, and from there, they're able to get the gem. It further showcases more of Steven's growth as a member of the team, not just as in his development as a gem, but as a member of the Crystal Gems. As despite the fact that he is out of his element, he is noticing these little details that the gems end up overlooking. Keep in mind, Garnet's plan was just to go from room to room and just keep trying. Amethyst, same thing, and she was just going damn the consequences as she kept trying to figure it out, while Pearl herself was on the verge of a breakdown because it just didn't make sense to her. Whereas with Steven, his own freak out allowed him to pay attention to these little details, and when he finally made the connection to the teacup ride at Funland, it's what made him realize, what if we found a way to stop this? And from there, that's what allowed them to figure out the trick to it and where the gemstone was located. Again, it further showcases why Steven is a valuable asset to the team. Because he's young, because he does see things from a different light from the gems. The gems are very much, that's actually kind of a flaw with the gems of the team. And I don't mean that in the sense of, oh, that makes them bad. No, I mean, the gems are very action-oriented when it comes to their missions. While they do try to be smart with their mission objectives, they are very much in the mindset of hit thing until it falls down. Whereas with Steven, because again of his lack of control of his powers, he does have to look at things from a more analytical perspective to try and prove himself as a member of the team. And so because of that, it allows him to see bits and pieces of the puzzle that other people would not notice, which in turn allows him to see things a few steps ahead from how other people from when other people would see it, like in the case of the trick with the temple, which again does further showcase how valuable an asset he is to the team, that he is that smart, and despite his age and inexperience, that alongside his own natural creativity and talents does make him an invaluable member of the team, and that does actually showcase why he probably is essential and why he still could use more training. Because if this was continually refined and was combined with his own powers and his own natural powers and attributes, it would allow the team to flourish, and it would allow Steven to flourish himself. So again, I like that. It showcases more of Steven's dynamic with the gems in a more serious capacity. So again, I like that. And the way the way Steven figures it out is a nice little analogous to the teacups, especially again with the hurdle of Steven having to get over what happened to that one with the teacups. So I like that. But again, otherwise, both episodes I think were good. Again, Bubble Buddies I think was good because it helped continually showcase more of the world of the show, with seeing more Beach City, introducing more characters, setting up Steven's bubble powers and that he still has to take control of it, and introducing Connie, who will become a major character as the series goes on. And then, of course, Serious Steven, further showcasing Steven's dynamic with the Crystal Gems and what he can do as a member of the team, despite his lack of experience in the field. So I like that. It does well in showcasing it. So yeah, overall, I think these are both good episodes. Very much enjoyable. Liked and glad I watched them. So yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson. Next week we're gonna go back to the MCU perspectives as I talk about Doctor Strange. But in 2 weeks from today, we'll look at episodes 9 and 10 of Steven Universe, and yeah, I hope you enjoy them. So until then, I'm Samuel Johnson. I hope you have a good night and take care.